Hey everybody, it's me, Laura, and today we're going to be doing the deep brought together. And what I mean by that is we're going to put all of the pieces that I had done with the creatures of the deep and the origins together into one overall piece. So I'm bringing in one of my boards here, and this thing is about close to 6 by about 6 3/4, 6.5. Anyways, this picture, I have the board already placed into it. I had used a metal frame and I'm bringing in my scrap clay. This is some gray clay, just whatever I had. I rolled this out on like a number 4 setting on my Atlas pasta machine. And right here with my blade, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this to the pencil marks that I had already previously put down. Now, for some of you, you're probably wondering, okay, why would she do, a video on this particular thing? Well, after doing the pieces I had created, I thought I needed to have something to really feature them all on at once and to give you an idea of how I would use some of those creatures or those forms that I've done. And this is my general go-to, is to create a picture piece. And I guess, I could put it into jewelry, but that would be really kind of weird. I don't know. It was hard for me to envision it in that particular element. And when it came to anything else, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. And especially when I'm trying to bring this all into one piece overall. So let's go ahead and, like I said, I'm cutting down. I'm getting this board prepped to go ahead and lay our creatures down on. All right, so once I got that scrap piece down onto my board, I decided to take another piece of scrap clay. And this was such, it really was a nice gray. And in a lot of ways, the thing is here, we're going to bring in paint anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But I wanted another layer of this. And again, I rolled it out on a number 4 setting on my Atlas pasta machine. But this time around, what I'm doing, and what you're going to be seeing here is I'm going to take my fingers and I'll run them along the edges. I'll be taking out as much of the small bubbles as I can. And in doing that, the best way I found to get rid of the bubbles is, I'm trying to press them out here. Sometimes it was a little difficult. I suggest, if you're really starting to see a lot of bubbles, between the 2 layers, lift up. When you put down that second layer, make sure it's very lightly done, okay, before you start putting, rubbing your edges down along each of the creases there. Make sure that you lightly do it, because what you're going to do is pull up a little bit where you have that air pocket and lift it up until you reach that point and then lay it down very, very smoothly. This way, then that pocket kind of goes away on its own. And like I said here, I'm bringing in my burnisher where I'm going to make those creases on the edges. And then I bring my blade in to go ahead and make sure I have a nice line cutting the extra off. Now that I have my clay background put down onto my board, I'm bringing in my Ateco circle cutters, and I'm going to probably use most all of them. Everything from the big one down to the small one. And what I'm going to do is I'm bringing in my deli sheet here, and I'm using this as just a little bit of a buffer, okay? But I'm not going to cut all the way through into the board. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just making some cuts into this clay with that deli sheet right underneath it to kind of give myself a nice line here and there throughout this entire clay background. And when you're doing this, I'd like to say I planned everything out, but this is one of those things where it's just kind of random. And I wanted some nice circles where they intersected with each other all throughout this background. Once I got all those circles put in, I decided to go ahead and bring in those little clay pieces, my creatures, and play with where I might place them into this picture. And I'm just doing this a little bit beforehand. And really, when I started doing it at this point, I came to the realization it's too early. It was just too early to make these things or put this into a picture piece already, okay? I needed to develop this just a little bit more. And in the process of trying to develop it just a little bit, I really decided I want to add in like 3 more pieces. So I have 3 teaspoon-sized tinfoil balls here, and I'm just going to cover them up with some of that scrap clay and bake these at 275 for about 7 minutes or so. I wanted to have just 3 more forms and see if this would help this design more in the end. At this point, the piece has already been baked thoroughly, okay? And I'm bringing in my blade here to kind of help lift it off the board. And if you're wondering, yes, I bake the clay directly onto the board. So the whole frame goes in the oven. The board can withstand the heat and so can the metal, no problem. And if you do that at 275 degrees, I want to say 7 to 10 minutes because the background is not that thick. It should bake up thoroughly just fine. Anyways, I'm bringing in my paints here. I've got a gunmetal gray, a midnight blue, a blue sapphire, and a color shift metallic blue flash. And these paints, these were the 4 I decided to settle on to go ahead and paint up my background. And I started with the gunmetal. It's probably the darkest and it's gray. I wanted something that would be kind of on the outside edges, giving a little bit more interest into the circle areas themselves. So I painted these outside areas with that gunmetal gray, and I really didn't do anything more. I used the other 3 into the circle areas. Now, these particular colors, I want to say with the exception of that blue sapphire and a little bit of that color shift, that blue flash, those 2 were a little bit more dynamic and they really kind of showed up a little bit more. But most of these colors, all of this was fairly muted. I wanted this to be dark colors, not to grab a ton of attention. I wanted a little bit of attention into the background, but not a ton. The main feature here is to really, show off those creatures that have been formed in the first place, right? And you need to make sure that whatever you place them on, that they don't take away from the main creatures that you have already created, right? Well, if that's the case, why didn't you just make it a plain gray or a plain blue? Or, I understand that. And maybe this is the artist's choice in this case. I just thought I wanted to have a little bit more interest in my background when I placed these creatures on there. And I wanted it to simulate, if you will, a little bit of a water feature. That's probably why I brought in the circle feature. It might be looking like, ringlets of, like water dropping into water, right? But I thought, no, it still, to me, it kind of gave that idea, at least in my mind. Now you guys would be like, okay, whatever. But I just went ahead and I started with the midnight blue. I wanted to go ahead and make sure it was in one of the larger areas wherever I put that particular paint down. And I tried to make sure that was in the larger areas overall. I wanted, like I said, I don't want to take away from the pieces when they go down on this background. So I want to make sure that the dynamics, like the blue flash and that blue sapphire, I want to make sure those are only used in not so big areas. Mind you, I do love those particular paints, and I couldn't help it. I thought I got to use it a little bit here and there, and so I wound up with what I wound up with. Here's the thing though, when you go to paint this piece, and if you do something similar like this, I always tried to make sure that one paint or one paint color, it would not run into its, it would not be painted in the same paint color in the next section right next to it, okay? You want to make sure that you've got a different paint color in each section, and that's what I tried to do here. If it was juxtaposition from its original color, that was fine. You know, if it came to a point and the other point led into that same color, that was okay. But I didn't want them to be side by side. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys watch my hands talk as I paint up this background and give you a much better sense as to what our picture is going to look like and for how our creatures will look against this particular background.
It's 1991. Birds and people are living together in seemingly perfect harmony. Until one day, a young man catches fire. This is Phoenix.
Okay, so our picture piece has all been painted up and it looks pretty good. And I had taken it off my board, of course, but I'm bringing in some E6000 and I want to go ahead and place this down on the board. I had thought about using my super glue, and the more I have been putting these pictures together, I have discovered that I much rather prefer my E6 compared to my super glue. And part of this is because this, I know E6000 is going to give a really strong grip. Okay, I know it's going to. But the nice thing about the E6 also is that Unlike super glue, where it gives a really, really secure bond, I can do it where the E6 I know is going to be, it'll hold really great, and I don't have to have it everywhere. So because I don't have that epoxy glue everywhere, I have a chance for this clay to breathe a little bit between the board itself that might expand a wee bit, not much, a wee bit, and the clay itself. So there's a little bit of, as I would say, breathing room, okay? You have air flowing through, so it's not going to just break on you. And that's why I like this. So once I got that mounted on the board itself, I decided to go ahead and bring in my creatures, see what they would look like on this. And you have to decide in a picture like this which side is up and which side is down. And I really liked where I had the where I had the more detailed circles. Oh my goodness, please forgive me. Where I had the more detailed circles in the piece. I wanted to go ahead and make those more towards the top of the design. I wanted them, if I was going to have a little bit of the background kind of shine through, I like to have more of the detailed areas do that, okay? So this is how I decided to place it, with my more duller and bigger areas on the bottom. So here I just started kind of designing up, but let's move on and let you guys see the options you have to choose from when it comes to creating this picture. Okay, so in this section here, I have design number 1, 2, 3, and all the way up to design number 10. Each of these designs are options as to how I can create this picture. And here's the deal, guys. I want you to give me an idea, which one do you like the most? Which one do you like best? I would really love your input. So look at each of these, and just as I have them going in order here, pick one, and then let me know and put it in the comments section. I really want to know what you think. Okay, so Laura forgot the little bubble things. Okay, we forgot to paint these up and put them on. Yeah, okay. So remember I had made those little bubbles from those little teaspoon tinfoil forms? Okay, I'm bringing in my gunmetal gray, I'll bring in my blue sapphire, and I'm bringing in my, having a brain meltdown. Oh no, oh yes, blue flash. And I'm just going to go ahead and cover each of those little baubles in each of those colors. From there, I'm going to bring in like my black and white. I'm also going to bring in my emerald flash and my aqua flash because I really love those colors, and I wanted to tie in from the creatures a little bit into these little bubbles. So I've got bubbles, okay? And that's what I'm going to do with these particular things. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys just watch my hands talk a little bit in here, and then we're going to move on, and I'm going to give you a few more options to our picture. Okay, so now that I've gotten these little bobble bubbles all kind of dried up, I'm just kind of putting them down into my picture and I'm going to play with them for a little bit. And in the next segment here, I'm going to give you another 10 options to look at. Okay, so this is design number 11, and it's going to be 11 through 20 in this whole section. And in this section, of course, I am using those little bobble bubbles that I had forgotten before. Now, some of you may like those, and some of you may say, no, I like the original 10. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to figure out what your favorite is, whether it's 1 through 20, and let me know which one, which design you like the best, and put that in the comments section. And when you do that, whichever number comes out with the most votes on whichever number it is, okay, I will go ahead and create that design with these creatures in mind. So please leave a comment, guys, and we'll see you next week. I'll be making sure that the design that gets picked the most will be put up in the community section with the final piece. All right, so this is my temporary end result of my creature thing. Please use this for study and reference. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.